Yes, what that means. I said, well, we'll just watch it and come back to
All right. This is the one that really grabbed my attention, Chris. The details of this, the way that it's segmented or sectioned off. This is the lower portion here.
No, this is just a
This
special one.
bottoms out at around 40 feet below what had been the original or the existing bedrock surface. This would have been the original surface up around this, these perimeter. These are fractured and fairly new fractures. You can see fracture, fairly clean fracture there. There's a transition point here where you can see fractures and previously opened. This may be where that Tilton Valley was. Break that already existed in the rock went down a certain depth. This might have been an extension of the Tilton. We don't know. There's a lot of details here that we're still looking at. But at this point here, we have a transition between fracture and this surface texture color. This is a point right here, fracture and old material above, and this detail over here shows the beginning of what I presume to be the boundary of an extremely energetic event that occurred 20 feet beneath building number 4 in 2 places. And we'll get to the topographical charts so that we can look at those. But this again is, this surface down here is not, in my opinion, caused by any mechanical erosion. This is all contained in what appears in the geological surveys to be a 40-foot diameter spheroid shape. So again, looking at the distinct oxides and the broken surface here, old broken surface. Again, old broken surface. Again, I'm thinking this is probably where that valley was. Just guessing at that because I don't, this is all we have to work with. But at this point here, we start having these sculpted out textures. I looked up, I joined a geology group, and I posted this picture and a few other pictures that we'll show you on the way down. And I said, what is this? And one of the members of the geology group posted, this is anatexy, A-N-A-T-E-X-Y. And it describes the surface of a metamorphic rock that has been exposed to an extraordinary amount of heat. At that boundary line, the melting or the this is where the it's essentially fractured. So this is a boundary line where heat from whatever happened 20 feet beneath the surface, the heat from whatever happened there reached these surfaces, and that's where the heat stopped, or at least that enough heat to fracture the bedrock at that surface. There were other fractures, and we'll look at those in the subsequent graphics. Scroll down. We're not looking, this is not the site here that we're looking at this time, Chris, but there are details here that we'll cover, and I'll come back up to these, dealing with what somebody else described as broken up rock. Here you see there's a blue pumper over here and an excavator over here. They're starting to dig this out, and in one of the damage reports, they say deep hole, and they also say deep hole here, or, well, we'll look down further.
And that's towers 1 and 2.
Right, this is the south tower, and that's the north tower. This is the remains of building number 6 and building number 7 is over in here. All right, damage report.
All right, Dennis.
This is a rough damage report, collapsed or heavily damaged in the beige, intact or mostly intact, and then other areas were not inspected. Again, a different rotation. looking at this where it says gone, and the structure underneath the South Tower and the North Tower were essentially gone, and somebody wrote in a deep hole because that's where that excavator was working that we saw.
The green means gone.
Yeah, the green is gone.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I said, okay, green is gone.
You're going to say one more time. Whatever was underneath the World Trade Towers is gone. It's always nice to have somebody let you know something's not there. All right. This is a boundary fence that was put in. This was taken in 2002, I believe.
Yes, February 22nd.
Second, yeah.
Yeah.
2002.
Right.
And this fence, I presume, was put in because this, which had been bedrock, all of this was fairly smooth bedrock that the towers had piers, dug into a little bit, enough to anchor the towers and whatever building number 7 was, to the bedrock. So this was all sound bedrock. There was no broken up rock before.
Well, there were basements for the
right,
towers.
but this is where the basements would have ended. This is the bottom level. This is where the bedrock, where they built everything upon.
It's got to be built on solid ground.
Yep.
So, and underneath Manhattan, it's all bedrock, all granite.
Yep, it's called Manhattan schist.
Manhattan schist. I'm totally familiar with it, Lorenzo.
Good.
So you can see the two cavities. The excavator and the pumper are gone. And this is where they said deep hole because they had started excavating. They really didn't mention this one. But you can see here the shadows and the broken up rock, and also in this general area here, they had to put down, and this is all, I'm making this all up. They had to put down this planking because the ground, the bedrock underneath this was not stable anymore. It was broken up. And as they started cleaning out, they discovered that the underpinnings were starting to reduce. They were moving, they were giving way. So this is well after they pumped enough water on everything to cool it down. They never excavated further than this that I know of underneath the towers.
Well, also we know that when the towers came down, it was so hot. The firefighters were saying that for months on end, they could not walk on the surface. Or weeks. I'm not sure if it was weeks or months, but it went into, I think, 2 months. And what was sustaining that much heat for so long? That's a big question.
Considering that they flooded the bathtub with millions of gallons of water. So essentially you fill up the bathtub with water. What's burning? What could possibly stay hot?
Right.
Underwater.
Well, what could stay hot would be the wake of an immense amount of energy being released beneath the towers, beneath building number 4, and at least in 2 places. And I've never studied about what happened during cleanup at building number 7. I sort of gave up with that picture. I just became obsessed with finding out where that picture that opens up 9/11 synthesis deep holes, where was that located? So that was the final quest, which culminated about 1.5 years ago, and we put these graphics together that we'll get down to.
Now we know that architects and engineers and David Chandler and et al. Have uncovered good evidence about the presence of thermite.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Nanothermite, red grade chips that reacted.
But doesn't thermite, isn't it spent after a fairly short period of time? And I don't believe it keeps things hot for 2 months.
But it wouldn't have been able to melt down through the bedrock and create those cavities that we saw, which were, by the way, underneath building number 4, not underneath either of the towers. You know, building number 4 was still, other than having perimeter columns from the north tower crush part of it, you know, cause structural failure of the roof and some floors. The building was intact. It wasn't, you know, other than, yeah. What happened beneath it is just fascinating. You know, it just fascinated me once I understood where it was, and we've never really come to understanding why they did whatever they did beneath building number 4. And that was the picture that we saw at the top. This is, you know, this is beneath the towers here. You can see that there's an implied diameter or radius, you know, implied by the way that the stuff here is broken up. So we could just sort of carry that line around to imagine that there's broken up rock within this whole area. And that means that something really powerful, an extraordinary amount of energy had to have been released below this point right here, at least 20, 30, 40, maybe 40 or 50 feet down. I don't know. I mean, we've never found out what's down there because we don't have access to the core samples. If they drill, we don't have access to any geological survey that I know of that exists for this side. I know that they built the memorial pools here. Why they didn't excavate further? Probably because they didn't want to reveal anymore to the public. I mean, so people were taking pictures, and if you saw what was down here underneath this, if it was anything similar to what we see up here at the top of the page, you know, they couldn't have built on that site again. They could not have built up on that site again without removing an awful lot of material from beneath that.
Well, either that, Lorenzo, or they, what I've done it with foundations in Manhattan is you excavate down until you hit the bedrock. Now, you have to go down so far, based on the depth of the foundation. So then, when you get down to where you want to be, if it's all uneven, they'll chip away and level things off. And then, if they get a level field, they don't care if bedrock is sticking up, because now what they're going to do is they're going to pour a slab on top of that.
Right, or
to level it off even more, and then you start building footings and putting the columns on top of that. So for them to be down into that bedrock, and for that bedrock to look like that, they, you know, I don't understand why they cleaned all the way down to the bedrock like that.
Well, they were building another low-rise on top of where building 4, there's a new building 4 that's built on that site. There are subsequent pictures that show them putting in the piers for the columns. So yeah, they were doing construction on that site. Now looking at that again, those cavities were only 40 feet deep, and well, call them 2 40-foot spheroid cavities. So I'm going to get down to that geological topographic. Come on, silly computer. Where are you? There we go. Right. Remember, you've heard William Rodriguez about the explosions down under, and you've seen
in the basement.
Yeah. This is the key. Let's look at the left-hand report here, and this is the survey that they did of the east bathtub where building number 4 was built after they had poured the slurry walls around the west bathtub, right, the west bathtub. So this is the site that building 4 was on, and this is that what they call a till-filled valley, where they had wood and round, eroded stone, piles of different sizes of stone that had been rolled between the glacier and the bedrock. So everything is like working and shaping each other as this is moving. So this is a valley, And this is as deep as they went during the initial geological survey.
Back in the 70s.
Back in the 70s. These, you can see that's a high point there. You can see that it's fairly flat there, so they may have milled that down later. Like you said, you know, it might have been in the way. They might have wanted to bring it down. But these are essentially low points. It's fairly smooth, and it's rising up here again.
So that, Lorenzo, that's an original survey of the rock.
Yes.
During or before the construction of the towers.
Well, at least before I'm not sure the sequence, but the building number, this is prior to the construction of building number 4.
Well, the towers went up in what, the 70s?
Yes.
Yeah, Susan's much more into the history of this than I am.
Susan, the towers, yeah, they went up in the 70s.
Yeah.
So is there a date on that map?
No, there is. I couldn't find one, but it's got to be on record in both the city and in the state. So this is part of the evidence. Now, this is just a PDF that we lifted off of the geological report. The 2 PDFs were on different pages. I didn't even notice them. I glanced over them the first time I looked through the report because I was so enthralled with the images that I was seeing, and just like say, I know what that is. I know what that is, and didn't think about graphics that would show me where what I was looking at was. But this is the detail that came to us about 1.5 years ago. And this section over here, this cross section of this cavity, you can see this line where the arrow here is pointing there and there out to this point here. And then there's this overhang. They call this an overhang, and this is, and I'm so lucky that we found this. Same again. So this is an expanded, this is made longer than this so that you can see the detail in the cross section better. So this was the original surface. That was the bedrock surface right there, that dotted line. This was also part of that bedrock surface, as was this, and that's called an upheaval, and that's called a, well, it's been reduced. Stuff underneath it gave away. But there's an intact section of bedrock. These are 2 still intact sections of bedrock that remain during the survey, which lets us know that 40 feet below this line here, which was the bedrock surface, is the bottom of this cavity that centers here.
Well, that says it all right there, because if they only excavated to that top line, then that was their level. They leveled the playing field to that. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Christopher. It's such a pleasure to talk with someone that understands what I'm talking about.
I mean, for something, you're looking at craters.
Those are, well, they're cavities. Crater, the difference.
Well, my terminology.
Yeah, I understand. We're caught in semantics. I hate that. Or should I say I love it? Yeah, go ahead.
A hole.
A hole.
That shouldn't be there.
That wasn't there before, Christopher.
No, it's not shown on the survey, and there's no reason for it to be there because you know as well as I, Manhattan schist is some of the hardest rock in the world. And you literally have to blast that rock to make it disappear. I know, I've done excavation. I work with a road header machine. I work with a tunnel boring machine in the tunnels under Manhattan. And we bored through solid rock 100 feet under Manhattan. Wow. And when we got to where we needed to be, then we started drilling holes and putting dynamite to make big holes.
Yeah. Well, these holes here were created by an extraordinary amount of heat. And of course there was pressure, but it was that heat that did all the work. The geological survey here is just so revealing. The essence is that we have 2 distinct 40-foot deep cavities that are spheroid. That's a really good indicator of the shape of the cavity, and you can see the way that the top is open.
Yeah.
There was probably something very similar on this side here with overhangs, and these had been cleaned out, or they possibly were broken up enough that they were carted away.
They excavated, yeah, they excavated out the loose material.
Yep. But these two pieces here remained during the survey. They were still there during the survey. And that gives you the indication of, see that widest point? That whatever occurred here probably happened right about where that arrow is pointing, which is about 20 feet below the surface of the bedrock. So it was able to melt essentially like 20 feet all around it. 20 feet all around it. Now this doesn't show the overhang here, Chris. Yeah, this is after, yeah, this stuff here is all the light color. So this rendering here doesn't have that, it doesn't show any of the stuff that was hanging out over this cavity. It's just right in the area of the cross section. But there could have been like a ring here that was broken up rock, similar to what we saw in the west bathtub beneath tower number, the north tower. So yeah, we have an overlay too that, and then we have an animated GIF that will make you crazy. So this is, essentially what the condition of the bedrock was before they did the work to, this is just to show the location of building number 4. And this is, again, to show the location of building number 4. So we, this is what I was looking for, was where are these holes? Where are the holes, man? And we finally found them thanks to David Meiswinkle, who poked me and got me to look at the geological report again about 1.5 years ago. This is an overlay of the two, showing you the black, of course, is what you saw as the original survey, and then the colored lines are post 9/11 after a really thorough cleaning out of those cavities. Power wash, and they had to pump the slurry out. There was like this gray mud in the bottom from washing the walls down. Not geological, no. I mean, who can make this stuff up? Oh, and this one here's the one that'll make you dizzy.
Before, after.
Before, after. This is hypnotizing. Before, after. Presto, changeo. So that's our presentation. This is, if it wasn't so horrible, this is beautiful. But this is the definition of anatexy, and this is the boundary picture of the boundary layer, and we're looking sideways, so you can see the building. Whoops, I'm trying to point with my finger. You can look out of the hole over here, and there's this.
Yeah, I see the new building 7. If that's what it is.
This was too early after that. I forget what this is. I mean, we have pictures of the post office
this
building.
This is around 2002.
Yeah.
I don't know. They started putting up building 7 pretty quick, the new one. They didn't even wait. It went up. The new building the construction was started in 2002.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
It could be.
And get this. The plans for the new building 7 were drawn up before 9/11.
Thank you.
Silverstein admitted as much.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is just for comparison, using nuclear reaction as a model, but describing pretty much what we're talking about. This type of energetic release had, in my opinion, there had to be an extraordinary amount of energy released in order to create those cavities. And this is the essence of what you get when you release that amount of energy beneath the ground.
That's you, not me.
Yeah, it was us.
Me.
Thank you. So this is the energy release. This is
graphics of underground nuclear tests.
Right. This is the second nanosecond after the initiation, the amount of energy that's released. Well, I'll let you read the graphics.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
I understand that.
Yep, and of course, I imagine you're familiar with the, and this is just a model of certain, seismological events of the day, but we have some major spikes, recorded during the alleged collapse of these towers that could only be caused that intense. We're talking about earthquake, not a bunch of structural steel raining down.
No, it's impossible. It's a different kind of wavelength, from what I understand.
Well, I like to use the metaphor. It's like banging on the wall rather than dropping something on the floor.
Yeah.
So this is a shock wave. This is a major shock wave. And we're talking about 2.1, 2.1, 2.3 and 2.1 ML. I forget what that stands for. One of the things that I'm having a problem with lately is every time I go, and I frequent Richard Gage's presentations, his surmising that the cavities that we're talking about, the cavity beneath building number 4 could have possibly been a result of the thermite that was used in the destruction of the towers. Thanks. We're trying to get Richard to open up a little bit to the possibility that there were other devices used. And one of the, looking at the cavity beneath building number 4 lets you know that there was something going on. Looking at the subsidence craters underneath buildings, towers 1 and 2, gives you an indication that something happened down below, very similar to what we were looking at under building number 4. I asked myself, why would they do that? And looking at the destruction of the towers, removing support for the complete, or as much of the core structure that was under the area that would have been fractured, so that the dismemberment was assisted. They had the devices. If you got them, smoke them. I don't know, Christopher. This is a complex, explosive, top-down explosive demolition to the towers. Very complex. Not just a bunch of explosives or.
No, they had to take out the core, and that was evidenced by the falling of the antenna.
Absolutely.
First.
And the canting of the section that tipped. The floor. The truss. The truss. Okay, the hat truss is another thing we can talk about at some point. I love to talk structure, so looking forward to another conversation.
I was actually fortunate enough to work down at Ground Zero for some of the reconstruction, and they were building the fountains, and I went under the fountains. I went into an area I didn't have authorization, but there was nobody there. It was a construction site. I'm already there, and I went.
You were down under the memorial pools?
I was under the pools.
Holy shit.
And I looked at the floor and I was trying to get my bearings. And I noticed that there were some steel columns that had been cut flush with the floor. And I know, the size of the perimeter columns.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. And I was like, it dawned on me that these were the columns of the towers that they had just cut flush with the floor. So I don't know what, I'm down low. I'm definitely in the basement. I'm definitely down to the footings where the columns were embedded in concrete. And I actually took pictures. I don't know where I put them, but I have pictures of the, I don't know if it was the North Tower, the South Tower, but it was the remains of the steel columns of the building. And then I look up and you could see the bottom of the fountain boxes, because that's all they are. They're just big boxes hanging.
Yeah, they're what are they, 5 or 6 inches of water in them?
Yeah, not much.
Not much. Wow, Christopher, for the longest time after I finally discovered the location of those 2 cavities beneath building number 4, I had, I did some writing, and one of the things that I wrote, I don't want to know who they are, but I want to be one of them. I wanted to go down underneath building number 4 into those cavities and play the blues or something. I mean, it was like one of these things I just became obsessed with for a while. I don't know whether the cavities still exist underneath building number 4, but you're talking about getting underneath things and looking at them and being there.
Yeah.
You just brought that memory back for me. Thank you.
I'm sure they're still there. They've probably been filled in with concrete, and now they have buildings over them, so you can't get at them. The only way they're going to remove those cavities is to just bring the whole level down. They have to cut them down to like a level area, make them disappear. And
I got a number of, we could go to it. What they did was they cleaned them out and chipped them out as much as they needed to for the new planned building. So we do have pictures of that section being, the forms and piers are being poured.
That's what I was going to say. They're not going to take out any more material than they have to, because everything is money.
Now, at the same time, concrete is very expensive, and if anything, they would have filled it with crushed stone first and then done a slab after they did the, I don't believe that they would have wasted that much concrete unless they.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they'll just pour the concrete freely, wild. They'll let the concrete run wild. We're
talking about 40-foot diameter cavities of concrete to bring it up to a.
They can't. They have to be very careful if they use loose material, because it has to be compacted.
Right, absolutely. And
so
crushed stone.
Yeah,
compact, 4 to 6 feet. Yeah, I'm just really curious. I would love to find out. Well, I'm still here on the planet. What is down there now? And I'd love to be able to see that they kept that. Those cavities.
But you have the surveys of the cavities.
Yeah.
So there's no denying, and you have pictures that there's no denying. And I'm real curious to get a geologist's opinion on the strata, what he's looking at in the rock, especially that one picture where you could see how, it's got a texture and a contour to it. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
1 second here. Do we still have the 9/11 synthesis page up?
You mean
because
yeah,
I know granite has a texture to it. Manhattan schist has a texture to it when it was formed.
When it's fractured, yeah.
And this, you could see the strata in the granite.
Yeah.
And that I don't know if that looks like a naturally formed strata or something caused it. So a geologist would be able to answer those questions. You need an expert.
Go ahead, you close it. Okay, I'm going to ask Susan to navigate because she's better at this than me.
No.
We're looking at photos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And albums. And deep hole.
And I see the hat truss.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, now we can just use the arrow to scroll.
Let me see.
See, they're chipping away at the rock there, because that's a rock hammer on the end of that machine.
Yeah, we're okay, sweetie.
Okay.
That's big enough. We don't need to see the finer details. You can see okay, that's the bedrock surface, the original bedrock surface here. They put a fence up, of course, like not much of a fence, a warning, so that people don't just walk into the hole. And yes, they're using a chipper. You can see this pipe here. Again, this is the original bedrock surface. They're starting to chip away in a fairly circular pattern.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yep.
So if
And you can see all the water pooled.
Yeah, that's from all their pumping and 2 or 3 months of cooling whatever was down there. Now we're talking about anatexy, the surface texture. Not really, and we're looking at this sideways. No entry points, no exit points as far as water flow goes beneath something that had already been surveyed. So I don't have to convince you in this. I just have to point the stuff out.
Right. And the official story is these formations were ice age erosion, but that doesn't hold water.
No, it doesn't. This is another picture, and there's that building, by the way.
that sure looks like the new building 7 to me.
It could be.
Wow.
So this is where
Susan, that's how fast that building went up. I was working down there doing street reconstruction, and the memorials to the people with all the pictures were up on the fences still.
Yeah.
And they were putting
Wow.
up, that's how fast they were putting that building up. The memorials were still there. They hadn't even finished the cleanup and they were putting that building up.
Wow.
right. They didn't build another trapezoidal building. That's correct. I can see that. Yeah, that was the flat side, and then they had the park to the right of that.
Looks very much like the Prudential in
Yeah.
Boston.
It does look.
Yeah, it does.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it isn't a square building. It does have. It is essentially a trapezoid. It's just a different kind of trapezoid.
Mhm. Now we have no clue what that pipe is. Maybe as a construction worker, you can fill us in. Is that important, or we can ignore it?
Well, it goes down into the bedrock, but and I'll break in a second. Go ahead, and if you have any thoughts about this, Chris, because I already have had my thoughts, possible thoughts about it.
This pipe shows in a lot of pictures, and it looks pretty oxidized, and we're not sure what the purpose of it is, and is it important or not? I have no idea.
Right, and you, having been into tunneling and boring into this bedrock.
We actually hit pipes that
Yeah.
were drilled down, small, like 12-inch
talking.
diameter pipes. We're in the middle. Now I'm 100 feet down in the middle of solid Manhattan schist with a tunnel boring machine. And we bored right through this. And here's this metal pipe in the middle of this solid rock.
Wow.
So
How big in diameter?
it was about 12 inches in diameter. But that looks bigger than 12 inches in diameter.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
guessing it's probably at least 24 to 28.
I was going to say it looks like it's a 24 or better.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's such a pleasure to talk with you, sir.
Same here.
About a subject that is not so good, but getting it, just getting these, being able to share this is wonderful. This is the one that we shared with Andy Steele. That's where, the cleft rock, where you can see the difference between fractured sections and where overhangs or sections might have been hanging, sticking out this way. But you can see that this is essentially the end of the fracture zone where they've taken and chipped or carved larger sections away. And now you can see that surface texture, the anatexy, down here. A really good comparison of colors, textures. And,
Well, that's definitely the texture of the rock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting down into the deep, and this is the same stuff. This is that same cavity beneath building number 4.
Yeah, that's definitely the strata of the granite.
Yeah, you can see the veins running through it.
Yeah.
There's building 7 reflected in the water.
Yeah, look
very
at that.
cool.
Is that
I had never paid attention to that before.
that's
Thank you.
crazy, Susan.
It's wonderful,
Mhm.
wonderful. So we have a direction on that. That's good. Thank you. Very cool.
The ghost of the new 7 is lurking in the shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all these crumbs, man. This is some of the rock, the wonderful round rock that fell into the cavity as they were excavating and washing it down. Then some wood fell, a bunch of stuff came into the cavity as they were cleaning it up. More texture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can see a
Beautiful.
number of cross textures and cross veins around here. And
It's like cave drawings.
yeah, this again is in my opinion, a really good example of that anatexy, or the fracturing of the surface, the spalling of the surface at a thermal boundary.
Yeah, you need a geologist to
You absolutely
explain
do.
some of this. What's naturally occurring, and what was done as a result of maybe exposing it to, like you said, some kind of energy.
Yep. Some kind of energy. A lot of people like to talk about directed energy, and I say, yep, there was a lot of directed energy to get 9/11 done, man. They really had their acts together. Again,
That rock looks like it's been melted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really. Yeah, I mean, it could be. It could
up near the top.
Yeah. I'm the jury is out for me on this one. I really can't analyze this one either way, because I'm seeing what appears to be moss or other old growth, or other textures and colors on it. I'm not getting that it's like as fresh as the other stone that we are really confident was a boundary, like a thermal boundary surface. So I'd love to hear a geologist and a physicists and geologists are what we need.
Yeah, you do.
This
is all, it's all speculative on my part.
Oh, mine too. It's totally speculative from here. Again, this is the slurry that they were pumping out as they were washing the cavity. I don't know whether they're using high pressure or just washing and brushing, but this is the stuff that flowed to the bottom of the cavity as they were,
yeah, they're cleaning it all off.
Yeah, and they pumped the stuff out. They had pumpers, some pumpers. Again, near the end of the clean out. Again, a really good definition between fracture and that surface anatexy. So right around in this line here is where that bulge probably was, and this is where those overhangs were that they had to break away. You can see all that chipping, and you can see that there's a difference in form and texture at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is about the depth of the belly. That widest point in the cross section that we looked about. So that's about 20 feet. That's approximately 20 feet below the surface, or approximately 20 feet above the final depth of this cavity. Again, looking all around.
You can see at the base, you can see how the rock is all cracked.
Yep. Now this is part of the natural, most likely, a good part of the natural. Most of the reaction at this point here was backed up by solid bedrock. So some of these cracks may have already been in existence. That might very well be a hose there. I don't know what that is, but it appears to be a fissure of some sort.
Well, right at the base of the wall and just in front of the planking.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, right up in there. Follow. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. That could have been part of the crack where the till was. The old crack where they did the survey where that snake-shaped valley was in the I'm just guessing again. That's all we can do is speculate about these details. Anything else in this picture that you might want to take a look at, or there's a fissure there. May have been pre-existing. Susan is wondering about what these dark spots might be, how deep they might go.
Yeah, they look like holes.
Yeah. I think you noticed something around. I remember that one. That's a different feature.
And they painted out what they were going to chop because I could see the orange spray paint.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is one of the new piers that has been poured.
Yeah, they'll sink a pier right into solid bedrock. There's no reason for them to go any further than they need to go.
Absolutely.
Unless the material is cracked and broken and it's unstable.
Right, which is why all this was removed. And they would never have built building number 4 on top of this.
No. No.
Okay, this is where that ladder was, and you can still, this gives you a really, that's like the original picture. I mean, this just shows you again about the original form, the colors and textures.
Scale.
Yeah, and the scale. There's about
Enormous.
12 inches between rungs on the ladder.
Yeah, the picture doesn't do it any justice, but you can see that it's a pretty big area.
It's a wide angle shot for sure. This is the overview. This is a much better rendering of it, and you can see where all the fracturing, the chipping has happened. There's that pipe again, and again, it does look to be about 2 feet in diameter. Somebody could actually get down inside of that if they needed to. Small person. The thought is that either control or you can tunnel. If you go down, can you tunnel sideways from something like this? If you go down a certain depth, can you then do a diagonal?
No, they'd have to come in on an angle.
Yeah. So I was just wondering why that. I was still wondering why that's there. And there's the post office building. The site of the, one of those holes is located on, centered on the east wall of building number 4. The other one is centered right about there. Again, a damage report. Subway feed, here's the slurry walls where building number 4 was, over in here somewhere. And pretty sure that's coming in, the tunnel coming in.
That's the subway?
Yeah. Again, the damage reports. Another researcher did this and noted breakup rock. And this is where the damage report noted the deep hole. These are showing, he's used, this researcher just sketched in 2 squares where he imagined the towers would have been, and not a real accurate, but a good rendering. And again, the remnants of building number 7. You can see how far out this breakup rock is too. This is pretty much the pre-existing surface of the bedrock, most of this stuff. But you get closer and closer to this, it's just, yeah. I just made these notes. And this again brings us to the, what I believe to be subsidence craters beneath where each of the towers stood. Looking at the cavities beneath building number 4, just imagining that the same thing would have been found, or something larger possibly would have been found beneath the towers if they had excavated any further down than this. Google Earth actually had a really neat thing that you could sweep your cursor across, but this is I had a much better, I have a better one that compares this and the location of the memorial pools, and they pretty much align very well with the stuff what we call the broken up rock underneath the towers. So again, talking about different depths and different energetic releases and the effect that they have. The what they call the pre-shot surface, the original bedrock surface, and then the post-shot or the subsidence that occurs after the material downstairs has been reduced. I just grabbed some graphics offline somewhere. I don't even know what this one is. I don't know whether it's I don't know. I just thought it was cool. Sorry.
Area 51.
I liked the way that it
Very
was so.
intent.
Yeah, I thought it was very artistic, just artistic. I look at things artistically first, then technically. Again, pre-shot surface, and there's upheavals like we saw in one of the cross sections. And then there was that side in the cross section that we saw that had actually caved in a little bit. And again, we're back to the beginning of the cycle. So that's pretty much our presentation about the deep holes, and it's so good to have somebody that we're on the same page with.
It's very interesting to see, these gigantic holes, when you put them in context and overlay them with the foundations of the buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. So.
I could share that with you. I'm pretty sure we have it in here somewhere. I have a link to it.
What?
To the Google Earth, that we can actually do that Google Earth thing. I'm pretty sure I have it in the files, in the group files.
Showing before and after 9/11?
Yeah. Hey, can you get to the group files from here? I'm not a Mac. I'm a Mac man. She's a PC woman.
Yeah.
I have to kind of start over again. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Okay. Files.
Yeah. Files. And links. Relevant links. I think we find relevant links. And slide down a little bit more. Or, I mean, more on the page. Oh, please. No, it's not here yet. Let me look slow. Oh, there it is. This one right here.
Right here?
Yep. Oh, I love screen sharing. This is so cool. Check this out, Christopher.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Now you can, if you put your finger in the middle of one of the memorial pools, and I'll draw my cursor back over it, you'll see that it's near the bottom of the ramp there, where what I presume to be planking to shore up the surface, to stabilize the surface. And this right here, so I can't use the cursor at the same time, but where I'm crossing right here.
I see it.
See the dark? There's the pool, and then see the dark? That's the shadow line cast by that, what they call the deep hole.
Yeah,
So,
it's right on the edge.
Yep, right on the edge. And I draw it back over. So this is in the group files. You're a member of the group, so you could go right into the files and look for any of this material, any of these links, and add them to your bookmarks if you wanted to demonstrate this sort of stuff. And we could message you the link if it's easier.
I think I saw them on there.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Just comment on the wooden planking.
Yeah, go ahead.
They probably put the wooden planking down, and you could see it under the crane. They were moving that crane around, and it's called a crane mat. So they probably put that planking down everywhere so the crane could move around that area. The crane's not staying in one spot.
Right. Well, if it had been stable bedrock, they wouldn't have needed the likelihood of them needing to put that down, because
no, they would have to put that down.
Even on exposed flat bedrock.
Yeah, they're not going to put it on rock, because a crane has to be on a level surface because of the loads involved.
Right. Are you talking about?
It can't teeter-totter.
Right. They have to have outriggers and jack points.
Well, if it's a crawler crane, it's a tracked crane. I think that was a tracked crane.
So got it. So
you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
It's a crawler.
Yeah, a crawler.
It's not a cherry picker. That's a that's a high capacity crane,
Yeah.
And they're gonna put that on a. They'll build up that surface with planks, and then come in with the crane mat, which is like 12 by 12s.
Right. Well, remember, this was at the bottom of the ramp too.
Yeah, they'll build it up. They're
yeah.
not gonna put that crane on rock. No
Okay.
way.
Well, I'm still.
So that would be protocol.
Right. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
When they drive it in, would they drive it on the bedrock?
No.
They would put a mat in wherever the
Yeah.
wherever this
Yeah,
column
and
would go.
they'll assemble it right on the crane mat.
Wow.
And you're talking about a crane with its own built-in ballast so that it can counterbalance?
Yeah, they'll what they'll do is the ironwork is put the crane together. So they'll come in with the tracks. The tracks are separate. Then you got the main part of the crane, and then the boom section comes in, and then you have the counterweights. They actually use a crane to build a crane.
Right.
Wow.
So they'll use the small crane. They'll use the cherry picker. Now the cherry picker is different, but the cherry picker can roll down on whatever they want. And then what they'll do is they'll just put the cribbing under the outriggers.
Got it.
Very cool. Yeah. Wow.
So that.
Go ahead, Christopher.
This is very interesting material. I had never really seen the holes until tonight.
I appreciate your receptivity and your knowledge about your intuitive or whatever it is that you've got. It's just really good to be resonating harmonically with someone as much as we are.
Lorenzo, I know all about Manhattan schist.
Excellent.
And for that hole to exist like that, something that, they didn't build a building over that hole. No way.
Yeah, and we're looking at building number 4, which is right where's my cursor?
Do you have pictures of what building 4 looked like after the attack while it was still standing?
Somewhere. They're available all over. Well, I don't know where they're available right now, Christopher. They're somewhere. I might have a picture of building 4.
I know there are people out there, who are claiming that the building was damaged before the towers came down. I don't know if it was 4, but some of the buildings in the complex were damaged.
They were talking about building number 7, of course, early in the morning. Stairwells coming out.
That guy Barry Jennings.
Yeah, Barry Jennings. Thank you.
That's why he had to go, because when he said he was coming down the stairs and there was an explosion, and it knocked out the floor in the stairwell. Yep. And he said that was before the tower came down, because he was looking out the window and the tower was still there. That kind of testimony, that was not in the commission report. They couldn't put that in there.
There's so much that we don't know, and so much that we can imagine. And going one step further, beyond my synthesis, where we're at least dealing with what appears to be evidence. The culmination of the collection of evidence, the surveys, the pictures, and of course the eyewitness testimony about explosions and the seismographics of the morning. There were so many events going on, and I wonder again what occurred, what the sequence of demolition on building number 7 was. Did they have similar devices or device beneath building number 7 to remove global support for the core structures, or was it a much more conventional demolition where they just took out the core columns sequentially?
I think building 7 was probably more of a straightforward demolition. That whereas the towers were built differently. The towers were actually a unique construction where the perimeter columns were actually support for the building.
They supported
major support.
More than half the load.
Yeah, and building 7, the spacing, it's like every 20 or 30 feet. It's just a conventional type building.
So that was, and it was only 47 stories. Taking down, the dramatic effect of doing that destruction, the demolition of the towers. So much going on, Christopher. There are other subjects that we cover here on 9/11 synthesis, but this is the one that I really wanted to connect with you. I'm so grateful that you joined us on this call. We talked with Richard Gage and Andy Steele at Architects and Engineers. We're in agreement that we need to have geologists, physicists, seismologists, and we're hoping that with your support, we can encourage Richard to look outside of the box a little bit more and not tout thermite and nanothermite as the only devices that were used in the destruction of the towers. The possibility that the core structure was taken, essentially the support for the core columns being removed by whatever happened down below might have been a part of the planned destruction of the buildings. I have a hard time, that's about the only thing that I really had a difficult time with listening to Richard about the persistent fires down below. Stick with the proofs. The thermite is there. The red-gray chips are there. The iron microspheres are there. This is all proof of what happened.
Right. Right. That's undeniable.
Yeah, undeniable. What I really like help with is getting, because Richard's the superstar in this. I mean, he's out there. He's working hard at this. I just want him to be telling the truth.
This is.
Oh,
Hold on a second.
He's definitely consumed by it. He's been doing it so long, and he's just such a tremendous figure.
Yeah.
To be doing something like this, the energy that goes into that, and to just be talking about 9/11 all the time, it takes something out of you, because it's so horrible. And
we want to share the load. We want to share the load over here. I told him on our last conversation, he was on the 1 or 2 Zoom calls ago with Andy Steele. And we told him that, okay, you're looking, oh gosh.
I don't know.
The essence was that I have ADHD, so it's a squirrel. That our conversation, what we agreed very strongly on was needing to get people with credentials, and more than 2 or 3 when it comes to geologists. We don't want just one opinion. We want a real strong conversation like what you and I are having right now. We don't want just one opinion. We want 3 opinions. Geologists, seismologists, and I'm hoping that with your help that we can encourage Richard to reach into architects and engineers, and these are people with this kind of interest, the stuff that you and I are talking about, and getting some of them interested in taking a look at this.
I think you'll definitely get the interest of people. I think everybody is looking at bits and pieces of it because it's so tremendous.
Yeah.
And there's all these little areas, it's pieces of it, literally is pieces of a big puzzle, and everybody has a piece, and where it takes somebody to try and piece it all together in a coherent fashion and make it that people could understand, because it's very complex. Like you've been saying, it's very complex. What was done wasn't done, it was the planning for what happened down at the trade centers. It took years, and I'm going to say that they're planning for that probably stretched back about 30 years.
Yep.
And it just came together at the right time because you had all of these players in place.
Absolutely.
They all managed to get on the same page, and they committed this horrible act.
This is what I call the directed energy weapon, is the amazing dedication and focus that the teams, the perpetrators, the designers, the engineers, the fabricators, the drillers, the people that mounted these devices, installed these devices. Wow, man, holy shit. I mean, equate it to the Manhattan Project, will you?
Yeah. Well, I think, I've heard theories that they 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 rolled whatever this reactive material, they used it to paint all the columns. They kind of painted whatever they were using to destroy the building. It was sort of like something that you could roll on. So it wasn't really that they needed to bring in these big demolitions, except they did bring in big demolitions because they had to take out the core columns.
Yep.
So there was different things going on there for sure.
Hell of a lot.
And
yep.
Yeah, and like you said, you had like window dressing effect too. Explosions. Because it was almost like a media event. They planned for that as well. They covered all the bases on this one. They really did. They covered the psychological aspect. They covered people who were seeking the truth, how they were going to try and they came up with this term truther, like it's a bad thing, like the truth is a bad thing. Yeah. That blows my mind away.
Me too. Yeah, absolutely.
It's very Orwellian.
When you think about it, it does. It blows your mind away that they could conjure up such evil, but you have to get past that.
Well, part of me has to really get into it in order to understand what it was that. Oh gosh, when you start imagining, like, take the Pentagon for instance, and have you looked at the Pentagon sorties page on 9/11 synthesis or in the website?
Briefly.
Okay, well, that's the sort of complex stuff that we're talking about, and of course the media complicity in having the greatest percentage of the witnesses testifying to seeing a Boeing passenger or airliner crash into the Pentagon, for instance. Oh, good thinking. And there's very few people that I know anymore that actually believe, and I don't even know that the people who say that they believe it actually believe it, but I don't, there's too much that we don't know. So
You didn't finish that sentence. What?
Believing what they've been told?
That the airliner.
Believing that an airliner crashed into the Pentagon, that a large Boeing aircraft crashed into the Pentagon. So
yeah, I'm not buying that just because of the way it penetrated into the building, and then you see the punch out hole, and they're trying to tell you that the nose of the aircraft made it through the rings and created that perfectly round punch out hole.
I was a B-52 mechanic for 3.5 years out of Loring Air Force Base, Maine. I understand airframe and power plant and systems. No crash at the Pentagon. No aircraft wreckage equals, and intact, mostly intact, displaced columns. But yeah, going back to the beginning again, honey, this meme here with the A-10. Susan gave me an A-10 Warthog model as a gift because that's never happened before. But selecting witnesses rather than just going through the whole pile of witnesses that the media. Witnesses testified that there was an aircraft that approached the Pentagon on a north path. That was the CIT group that did these well after the fact interviews with people that had testified before the Library of Congress to what they saw. And a number of people testified to seeing something like a commuter jet. There were also people that testified to a missile smelling cordite, which may have been a solid propellant or possibly one of the devices used as the warhead, the payload. And Roosevelt and Roberts seeing the aircraft fly over, since there was no wreckage there of any sort out of the whatever approached the Pentagon, flew over the Pentagon. And at a presentation that we gave last year around this time with Wayne Costa at the Boston group, I actually used this little model, and Wayne had his graphics up. He was very generous in using his presentation of the Pentagon, because that's what his investment is in this presentation on the Pentagon, and saying that an aircraft crashed there. So he had his graphics up, and I took this little model. He had a really good rendering of the area of the Pentagon that was struck, including what was over the Pentagon. The last picture that had a dark, I think that's further down in here. I believe that it's one of the sequence. Okay, slow down a little bit. Next one. There we go. Next one. Next one. Okay. Oh, that one there. Next one. Okay, sorry. Much better. This device right over there is above the Pentagon. There was no damage to the roof of the Pentagon and this is, 5 or 6 seconds after the attack. You can see that the intensity, that flash at the beginning, indicative of a high explosion. I took this model of the Warthog that Susan gave me, and I brought it over the Pentagon to where that object there is, and I tipped it, and I kept on playing with it. It was like I was flying away from the Pentagon and doing a right bank, a climb right bank and climb away, and it almost perfectly superimposed on that shadow or that dark image, whatever it is. It was just a fascinating fantasy. That's all I can say right now, is that I had this fantasy that the Pentagon was attacked by a Warthog with an air-to-ground missile, like a tank killer, something that could...
Well, how about maybe it was a Global Hawk that was painted to resemble a commercial airliner on a smaller scale?
My tendency, I don't really subscribe to that one, Christopher.
I'm just throwing that out there.
I know, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I subscribe to I needed to make a lot of selections when I came up with the synthesis, and Roosevelt Roberts' testimony about the flyover is crucial, as is the lack of evidence at the site. Although it could have been a cruise missile, the testimony of Roosevelt Roberts would then be thrown away, and I believe him, so I have to go with what I believe right now. I want to believe him. He was a police officer at the Pentagon. His testimony was given before the, So this is just one of the little bits of research. The other one, of course, is the airborne sorties in New York, and the use of an incendiary to ensure the ignition of the jet fuel upon impact. So that's I don't know if you've checked that one out yet.
No.
Okay.
What it is?
On the morning of September 11, 2001.
Do you want to go through this? Oh, it's only 3 minutes. Okay. Pilots. Yeah, Rob Balsamo's, he's a bit of a, I don't know, grump.
But he's good.
But he's good.
He does good work.
Where did you get this information from
When discussing airspace surrounding our nation's capital, often the restricted airspace referred to is the prohibited areas around the Capitol building and the White House. We have to look further out. This is known as Class Bravo airspace. It is a highly controlled airspace in which you need a clearance to enter. including two-way radio communication and a working mode C transponder that reports your altitude. New York and Washington, D.C. both have Class Bravo airspace surrounding their hub airports. New York covers JFK, Newark, and LaGuardia, while Washington covers Baltimore, Reagan National in the middle, and west to Dulles. American 77 was lost from radar when its transponder was shut off at 8:56 a.m. This is 10 minutes after the first tower strike and 16 minutes after Washington was notified to keep an eye out for suspicious aircraft. Danielle O'Brien at Washington TRACOM observed a fast-moving target penetrating Washington Class Bravo. She wasn't notified of the events in New York, yet Washington Central was advised. Why was this information seemingly intercepted from getting to TRACOM controllers in Washington? Had Miss O'Brien and her colleagues been advised of the events in New York, would she have been more alert to have the target penetrating Washington Class Bravo intercepted? Or would it have gone out to the Langley fighters, who were over the Atlantic? If the unidentified target reached Washington, D.C., certainly Pentagon aircraft defense could have played a role, if April Gallup is correct. Some have argued that the Pentagon would not have such a defense because the mission was so close, an aircraft departing and arriving could inadvertently be shot down. Those who make such arguments aren't familiar with how the national airspace system works. Most aircraft arriving into Reagan National are well known of their intentions prior to even departing their origin airport. Those that are well known of their intentions prior to entering Washington Class Bravo, 30 miles from Reagan National. Those who don't communicate and perhaps have their transponders off, that is your target. Aside from the fact we already know it's impossible for an aircraft to have caused the physical damage at the Pentagon based on witnesses filmed on location and data provided by government agencies, an unidentified aircraft should not have been anywhere close to the Pentagon. It appears the interceptors were intercepted.
Yeah.
Always one step behind the curve until the objectives were accomplished.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yes, Christopher.
You know, the thing is, I don't think if the Pentagon were not hit, I don't think they would have been able to use 9/11 as an excuse to attack Iraq or even Afghanistan. But
No, they needed a military target.
Yeah.
that's right. So the Pentagon is a very important target. Yeah.
Well, that falls right in line with Operation Northwoods,
Mhm.
Yes, indeed it does.
which, you know, that was the precursor to 9/11. They just updated the plan. They took the plan, dusted it off the shelf, added a couple of twists to it, and used the same plan.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious, you know, when you tell people that, you know, Operation Northwoods involves swapping out civilian aircraft with drone aircraft and attacking civilian and military targets as justification to invade a foreign country. Why does that sound so familiar?
Yes.
You know, it's not hard to put that one together.
Yeah.
And the fact that little tidbit had to come out in the House Assassinations Commission, you know, looking into Kennedy and Martin Luther King, that they actually uncovered that,
Yeah.
you know, back in the, I guess it was the early 70s. But,
And it makes you wonder how far back it really does go, because the Spanish-American War was also proved to be a false flag 100 years later. You know, the Maine was not attacked. The USS Maine was not attacked. It was a false flag to start a war. So
it's the oldest excuse in the book.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, and they've been getting away with it and getting away with it.
Mhm.
You know, they knocked off Kennedy, got away with it. And
Yep.
now, you know, now here it is almost 20 years later, and we have, you know, 3,000 people dead, and we've been involved in a war for over 20 years. They think they're untouchable.
They really do. Sometimes it's so brazen.
Yeah.
I mean, Martin Luther King was killed by the CIA, and the King family brought them to court and actually won the case in 1999. They
You don't
proved,
hear too much about that.
yeah, and it's incredibly brazen.
Yep.
And yet the government that killed Martin Luther King has all these Martin Luther King boulevards and streets and buildings commemorating him and a Martin Luther King Day. It's bizarre. They're like in your face with this.
They are, Susan, they are,
Yeah, they
That-
really, the hubris is astounding.
But they really crossed the line on 9/11,
Mhm.
and they that never should have occurred. Never should have occurred. A lot of good people got killed.
Yep.
And the Pentagon is particularly important, as I stated before, but also it's unfortunately caused for a big fissure among the 9/11 truthers, because they're debating the Pentagon and arguing with each other all over the place, up and down and in and out, about the Pentagon. And it gets really rather heated and divisive.
Susan, they're getting caught up in the weeds, as the saying goes.
And, I keep coming right back to, I don't know what happened at the Pentagon, but nothing should have hit the Pentagon. That should be enough for you.
Yep.
Nothing should have hit the Pentagon. They were well warned with the attack in New York, and the Pentagon is arguably the most surveilled building in the United States.
And defended.
Surveilled and defended building in America. And we only get one blurry video of this attack.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They had an active.
That's all you need to know. Why argue about the weeds?
We shouldn't, Susan, and people have to stay on point here, okay? Our best hope is with the letter for correction from NIST, and to get the lawsuits, see the lawsuits through, and the trying to get the grand jury to impanel, to be impaneled. That's our best hope.
Well, they just
If
fired
you can-
the attorney.
Right, the prosecutor, the federal prosecutor.
Burgess?
Berman,
Berman, right.
he's
So
out.
he got fired, and I'm not sure what that really means, because he was blocking this to begin with. He gave it the go-ahead, but it was supposed to happen in a couple of months, and so it's going on 2 years now.
They were dragging their feet for 18 months.
Yeah, 18 months.
And then they turned around and said that they tried to, they made a motion to dismiss based on the fact that we didn't have standing.
Right.
Yeah, that's
which is, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
But that case, Susan and Lorenzo, that case could conceivably go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it does.
Rather,
they're not going to blow that one off.
Indeed, I really have a strong feeling. A friend of mine, Hamuk, I had been donating to the Lawyers Committee, and he said it's a secret process. You're never going to know.
Right.
I said, what are you doing? This thing really, I met Susan looking to start a citizens commission, with all the teeth. Everything that our government, in quotes, can do, we would be able to do. As far as subpoena, bringing people to trial, just the whole legal workings would have been available, and it was sabotaged.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really hard to say what is the objective here. I think it's basically to wake people up, because I have so little faith now in the justice system.
Yeah.
When you mentioned Supreme Court and having standing. Another issue I was involved with was the NDAA 2012. Are you familiar with that?
No.
That was, well, the NDAA is the National Defense Authorization Act, and it's a funding bill that's passed by Congress every year. And the reason it's passed by Congress every year is because it's a funding bill and it expires every year. All except for the policy sections. The funding sections expire every year, but policy sections stand. And in 2012, at midnight, New Year's Eve, Congress passed the NDAA 2012, which had sections 1021 and 1022 that gave the executive office, meaning the president, authority to detain anyone, including US citizens, with secret evidence and without any due process indefinitely. So that basically overrules the Fourth Amendment, Sixth Amendment. You know, it's just, it turns the United States into a banana republic where anybody can be disappeared because of the decision of one man.
Right.
Now, nobody got excited because at the time, President Obama was the president. But alarm signals went up for a few of us saying it doesn't matter because this is a policy section and it doesn't matter who the current president is. This stands for all future presidents, you know, and it's just not some kind of power you want to give to any one individual in this country.
No. No.
So Chris
We
Hedges,
have to start somewhere, Susan.
yeah, so Chris Hedges and the ACLU and Dan Ellsberg decided to bring this to court. And Judge Forrester in the Ninth Circuit District ruled it unconstitutional, which basically kicked it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court would not hear it. They would not rule on it. They simply refused to hear it because those three parties who brought it to the Supreme Court did not have a standing. They couldn't prove anyone was harmed by this. Well, how can you prove anyone's been harmed when you're talking secret evidence and disappearing indefinitely?
Right.
So that just left me feeling like there is no justice. We can't have it in this country anymore. If that's
well, they're trying to make that claim.
What?
Susan, they're trying to make that claim of that we have no standing, but the law is pretty specific in that people do have the right to seek redress from grievances, and it doesn't make a difference. They can't, you don't have to have standing.
How do you
have the
crack that wall, though? I mean, this was against 3 of the Bill of Rights. It was against the Magna Carta, for God's sakes. This was just so basic. And
well,
they
let them
not even hear it.
Let them come out and say it, because I'll tell anybody. How could you tell the public that I have evidence related to 9/11, and you're telling me you don't even want to look at it?
Yeah.
Right. So you're telling me that, irregardless of if the evidence shows something different, you don't even want to look at it. Well, you know what? That's just wrong. And I think people could understand that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Thank
true.
you.
Thank you.
And if you could prove that, I brought this up with Mick Harrison from the Lawyers Committee, that if these people know that a crime has been committed and they try and cover it up, They're guilty of misprision, of treason.
Yes.
And that's huge. We need to start throwing the treason word out there and get people shaking in their boots that, you know what, you better start thinking about this, because you're going to be dangling at the end of a rope after this is all said and done.
Fundamental complicity. If you know something and you don't say something, you are just as guilty.
You're just as guilty. Absolutely, Lorenzo. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pardon me if I get a little excited.
Hey, it's so good to be with you today. Yeah, excuse me too if I get a little bit carried away.
Yeah, I know. You're probably just as passionate. You keep it under control.
You know, I'd like to just get back into music and art and dancing and stuff like that, but you know, it's our future. It's our children's future. It's our grandchildren's future. This is just too important.
It is. This is something that you can't let go.
Yeah.
You can't let go. If you know, when I tell people, look, if I spend the rest of my life chasing this, that's what I'm going to do. This is my mission in life.
Yeah.
You know, I've come this far. I should have been dead 3 or 4 times over. You know what? So this is it.
Yep.
This is it.
Christopher. You like Chris or Christopher?
Christopher when I'm in trouble.
Lorenzo when you like me.
All right, Lorenzo. It's good chatting with you guys, and thank you very much for showing me that. I told you that's the first time that I'm seeing in depth, no pun intended, about
the official story doesn't hold water.
Right.
No.
Here are some holes they left out of the official story.
Yeah, that's some serious holes, definitely.
So, you let this percolate in your head for a while. We're going to be holding, see who comes on. We're trying to figure out how to get this out there. It's been difficult to get people to understand what we're seeing and the consequences of what we're seeing. So yeah, please, Chris, let this percolate in your head. And if you have any other questions, we're going to have this Zoom call, same time, same place, every Tuesday.
Same bad time, same bad channel?
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So there may be other things you think of in the meantime that you want to raise for a future meeting, and we'd really appreciate that.
One more thing, which has to do with the Lawyers Committee. Are you in contact with them at all?
Yes, all the time.
We need all, you know, I don't know whether David Meiswinkle or Mick.
Meiswinkle, I think.
Meiswinkle, David Meiswinkle, Executive Director.
Yeah.
Mick Harrison?
And Mick Harrison is their litigation director.
Yep. So I presented this to them. They have the whole geological survey. As a matter of fact, David was the person, again, that poked me towards the, you know, one of the people that wrote the survey. He said, if you disagree with, you know, the survey, then he replied to an email like it was cryptic. If you disagree, then contact Ms. M.S. Moss. So I Googled Ms. Moss 9/11 and came up with the firm that the organization that did the surveys. So David is responsible for me finding that pretty much, because I probably wouldn't have looked there again hadn't he prodded me. And it was, again, cryptic, but once I saw that, Susan will attest to the fact that I went through the fucking roof.
Yeah. Blood pressure went way too high.
I finally found what I was looking for, and that can be a real problem sometimes.
And
and you know, the rest is pretty much history on that one. This needs to be shared in a way, if they don't get it already, if this is not part of the evidence that they're working with, whether they're able to go.
I'll bring it up. But David is very receptive to everything. That guy's into everything.
Well, yeah, I just
it might be us, our presentation. Maybe we're not very good at presenting this, because we're having a hard time explaining to people what this means. And I'm grateful that you have the experience to understand it and get past
Yep.
our flaws in our presentation. Yeah.
Susan asked David a question in the last 9/11 Deep States conference call that we were on, and it had to do with these deep holes, and he just sort of swept it. We have so many other things that are real evidence.
Yeah, it's probably something that he hasn't delved into. He's probably not well versed in it, and he probably doesn't feel comfortable talking about it.
Right.
Well,
I think that's it. And we have to,
I think
we have
that's
to
it.
make it 101,
and with your help,
deep
hopefully.
holes for dummies or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a part of history, Chris. It's a piece of history that nobody else has been looking at, as far as I know, other than the
No,
people
this is
that
important. This is
contact with
crucial
us.
because now you're looking at it from the bottom up,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
not
Thank
the
you.
top down.
Yeah. Well, it's
You
a
know?
combination, top down, and removing. The only thing I could think of was removing support for the core structure. But why building number 4?
Yeah.
And why the wonderful, wonderful, clean, crisp documentation that is so incriminating.
Don't get your blood pressure.
Oh, sorry.
I will. I know he's got something planned coming up. I know I'm going to be talking to him soon, and I will definitely bring it up with him, and I'll talk to him about it and see what his thoughts are on all of this. You know, and maybe we can move forward on it.
If he would be willing, if you and David, if we could do what we're doing with you, with David included at some point, or just you and David, of course, would be good because you got it. I mean, I don't need to be here at all.
We'll entertain it. I mean, the surveys speak for themselves.
Yeah,
they really do.
And if you take him to the Wix website with the imagery or the 9/11, and he's a member of the group too, so he can easily. I mean, it's an open group. There's no secrets. So if you wanted to check out you and David wanted to check out the images on 9/11 synthesis, it's a really good compilation of images of the deep holes beneath.
I'll show him that. You know, I know what you were saying, that Richard Gage is kind of he's narrowed his focus as to one cause, but yeah. I'm with you. I think that there's several methods of bringing those buildings down. They employed different techniques. Yep. because of the structures themselves.
Yep.
Right. Well, thank you very much. It's well
thank you.
My bedtime. I'm no spring chicken. I got to get to work tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Hope you'll join us again.
I will. It was a pleasure to come on and speak with both of you. Very nice to meet you.
Very nice meeting you and talking with you. Thank you.
All right, Lorenzo.
The
Susan,
best
you have a good
time I've
night
had
now.
yet. The best time I've had yet.
It's good to talk about things.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Have a good night now.
Good night. Good night, Chris.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Very good.